Good morning. Welcome to AP Computer Science A. Today, we're going to go over section 9.1, Inheritance. So be sure to have your notes with you. Be sure to have your repo opened up to section 9.1. Type in your name, period, and don't forget to click Submit once you are done so you can get credit for this assignment. Today, we are going to introduce the concept of inheritance. But before we actually get there, let's look at our previous hamburger class that we built on Unit 5. And in our hamburger class, we have our name of the class, hamburger. We have our instance variables, patty, cheese, tomato. We have our first constructor or default constructor that takes in no parameters and constructs a hamburger by using the keyword this with one patty, one cheese, and with tomato. Now remember that whenever you use the keyword this within constructor, this is calling your other constructor, and those arguments are being sent as formal parameters to be able to place the values of the instance variables. In addition, we have our set patty method, so therefore we're going to send the patty into the mutator method to be able to restrict how many patties they can have on a hamburger. We also use the keyword this dot cheese equal to cheese to be able to differentiate that this cheese is your instance variable and cheese is your actual parameter or your formal parameter that's coming in. We have our mutator method. We have our getter methods. And we have our toString that's going to tell Java what does your object represent when it gets printed. And it has our equals method that will tell Java whether two objects are equal. Java doesn't know how to represent your object or to determine whether they're equal to each other unless you tell it to, because Java doesn't know what an object represents or what it is or what it contains. You need to be able to tell Java how to print it by using your toString method and to determine if they're equal to each other by your equals method. So now let's go and build two objects. Let's go two hamburger objects. And the first one, let's go and call it B1 as the variable name. We're going to call the constructor. And let's just go and make a plain cheeseburger, one patty, one slice of cheese, and with tomato. So therefore, we're going to call our default constructor. By calling our default constructor, let me just go and print it. We have our toString method, so therefore we are able to print it. If by any chance you don't have a toString method, the only thing that's going to print is going to be your memory location as a hashtag. So in this case, if I run it, it should go to print one patty, one cheese, and tomato. Now, when we call our hamburger constructor or default constructor, because of the keyword this, we call it this constructor, then it's going to call our other constructor and set up our patty or cheese and tomato. Now let's go and build another hamburger, and now let's go and call our second constructor b2 equals new hamburger is the name of the class. Now we're going to call other constructor. Let's say we want a double with no tomato. Let's go and print it out. And now if we run it, then we should have our first hamburger, which we call our default constructor, 1, 1, and true. Then our second hamburger, using the second constructor, 2 patties, 2 cheese, and no tomato. So now let's go and introduce the concept of inheritance. So let's assume that your burger place is going to offer a new hamburger. It's going to offer a hamburger with bacon and onion rings. And it's going to be a temporary item on the menu. So therefore, we don't want to be able to continue to add so many variables and so many methods that this class is going to be overwhelming. especially if it's going to be a temporary menu item on your menu. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a brand new class, and we're going to call it a Western Burger. So therefore, we are going to use public class the same way that we did before, Western Burger. But because we already have a burger, and we already have the same, it's going to have patty, cheese, tomato. It's going to be constructed as a, it's going to have the following getter and mutator methods. It already has a toString and an equals. We want to be able to utilize all these methods within our Western Burger. So therefore, we're going to use the keyword extends hamburger. And by using the following keyword extends, then Java is going to allow Western Burger to inherit everything from hamburger. So therefore, we're going to be able to inherit your toString, your getter methods, your constructor, and your instance variables. So first, we're going to continue, and we're going to declare our instance variables or additional. So therefore, this is a Western bacon cheeseburger. So we are going to have int bacon. How many slices of bacon they would like is equal. Remember that your instance variables always have to be private. That if you don't place private on your AP exam, they're going to deduct 1 point. In private int, or they just can say onion rings true or false. So let's say boolean onion rings. And now we're going to build our constructor. So we're going to be public Western burger. And now remember, our constructor is going to take our formal parameters. So within your constructor, we need to be able to initialize your instance variables. In this case, we have 2. So therefore, we're going to say bacon equal to 1 and onion rings equal to 3. From there, we can have our setter methods and our accessor methods. So let's go and say, and let me just go and label this as our constructor. Now our setter methods or mutator methods, we are going to have one for the bacon. So public, we're going to set a different value for bacon, so we don't need to return anything. It's going to be a void. Now it's going to be set bacon. We're going to get an integer to be able to see how many they want to change it to. So let's say bacon will be bacon. And now we can say this bacon equals to bacon. If you want to be able to just place B in here, so you don't have to use the keyword this, is fine. And let's not go and place any restrictions just for save a bit of time. So public void set onion rings. And boolean. And that'll be onions. In this case, because we use a different variable name, onions versus onion rings, we don't need to use the keyword this. You can if you want. If you want to do this, onion rings equal to onion, you can. But because they are named different, you don't need it. So now let's go and create it. We have our getter, we need our getter methods, right? That's the last thing that we're doing for now. Public. The getter methods, the only purpose of the getter methods is to be able to return the value of the variables. So let's go and say for the bacon, it's going to return an integer, get bacon. We don't need any parameters, and the only thing that we need to do is to return bacon. Let's do another one for the onion rings. So public onion rings is a boolean, so we return a boolean and get. We don't need any parameters. The only thing that we need to do is return onion. So now let's go and create our Western bacon burger. So now we can say Western burger B3 equals new Western burger. And we're going to call our default constructor. Therefore, it's going to create a Western burger with one bacon and onion rings. And let's go and print it out to see what happens. And we're going to print it out. And there's an error, Western burger. And I forgot the little in here. You probably saw that before I did. So now it prints the first burger, the second burger, and now it's going to be the third burger. But notice that it's not printing, it's printing something, even though we don't have a toString method here, because it's going to inherit everything for the hamburger class. It's going to be using the toString method from the hamburger class. We want to be able to add the number of bacon slices and whether they want onion rings. So we're going to go back into a Western burger, and we are going to create our toString. Public, we're going to return a string, toString. And because we already have part of it built in within our hamburger class, what we need to do, we just need to be able to build a string and add to what we already have. To do so, we are going to return, we're going to call not this, but we're going to use the keyword super. And we're going to come back to the super one in a few minutes. By using the word super, it's going to take it to the parent class. So this is the child class because it's inheriting everything from the hamburger class. The hamburger class will be the parent class, and the Western burger will be your child class. So by using the word super, it's going to be calling the parent class, which in this case is inheriting from hamburger. And we can call the toString method, which is going to return this part. Then we are going to add, let's go make a new line, and let's make it tab, and let's say bacon, lowercase, just to keep the same, equals bacon. Now let's go and add on the next, I want to say plus, new line, new tab. We have onion rings. Let's say onion rings equal plus and now we can run it once again, and we have added to your parent class toString, we've added those two additional lines to be able to clean them up. So now we have our burger, our hamburger, and now our Western burger. Now, if we want to be able to change the title, we can, but for now, let's just go and leave it as that. we know that about those two items, we are building a Western bacon cheeseburger. Now let's go and build another one. And let's go and call our second constructor. So we are going to create our second constructor here, which is an essential part of inheritance. We're going to say public Western burger. And let's go and place all of our variables. Let's say that we want to be able to set the number of patties as well. So int patty, the number of cheese, int cheese, then tomato, boolean, and it's going to be tomato. And now we are going to set the bacon in bacon and boolean onion rings. And now we are going to have to set the first three, which are in our hamburger class. So therefore, we're going to have to call our constructor from the hamburger class, because West hamburger is the parent class. We have to call the constructor of the parent class. We're going to have to use not this, but super. And we're going to send in those three arguments: patty, cheese, and tomato. And those three arguments are going to be set or assigned by this constructor. Then once it finishes, it's going to come back. And now we need to be able to set the last two of this bacon equals to bacon, this onion ring, if I can spell it correctly, equals onion rings. And now we can build our other Western burger by calling our second constructor. Western burger before equals new Western burger. And now let's go and print out. Well, we're supposed to call our before our second constructor. So we need to be able to tell it. Right now we're calling our first constructor. Let's say we want a 3 patties, 3 cheese, no tomato, 3 bacons, and onion rings will be true. So now we can go and print it out. And we are placing our 2 hamburgers and then calling our default constructor for the Western burger, and now our other constructor for the Western burger with 3 false, 3 true. Any questions? So just be sure that you understand that in this case, whenever you call in this constructor, the Western burger constructor, the second constructor, that is going to be calling the constructor by using the super keyword. The super keyword you're going to be using, calling the constructor from the hamburger, which will be setting your variables here, then coming back and setting those 2 last variables that we have. Any questions? So the last thing that we need to do is we need to be able to kind of trace back our constructors. We are going to place and this is part of your AP exam, the multiple choice. They usually have this question where we are going to print a statement here so we can keep track whether it went through that constructor or not. Just now print ln, and let's say first hamburger constructor. And now we're going to do the same thing here. Now we're going to say second. And let me just run it so I can show you one more thing. If I run it, you're going to get the following. Call to this must be the first statement in a constructor. So therefore, the keyword this must always be first. So I'm going to take the print and I'll place it afterwards instead. Now, notice that in this case, we do have the keyword this, but that's fine. We just cannot call the constructor this, and then the constructor must be the first line. Whenever you use this.cheese, that's fine. That will not give you an error. Now let's do the same thing for a Western burger. I'm going to go and place my print statement, either before or after. I'm going to place it right before. And now first Western burger constructor. And now it's going to be on our second constructor. Remember, we can't place it here because the super word has to go first. In the same manner that this keyword has to go first, we have to do it after the super. The super must be the first statement within your constructor. So therefore, we have our first Western burger constructor or second Western burger constructor. So now we can track which constructor got used whenever we build a object. So let's go and write it, and now we can analyze it. So notice that in this case, when we construct a hamburger, it's calling the second constructor and then the first. So that, how does that happen? Right? Call the hamburger constructor, we go over here. The hamburger constructor we go through here. It calls the other constructor first. Before it gets to line 13, we are being sent to this constructor. Then we print the second hamburger constructor, and that's why that line gets printed first. It says the patty, the cheese, the tomato, and then comes back to line 13, and then it prints the first constructor. And then we go back and print our hamburger. Whenever we call or create our second hamburger, it's just going to be using the second constructor, and that's the only thing that gets printed, and then we print our hamburger. Now, let's go and look at inheritance. Whenever we call our default constructor for Western burger is going to print second hamburger constructor, Y. Right? So in this case, even though we are not calling our super, we're not doing the following, super, we are not doing that. Whenever you do inheritance and you have a default constructor, it automatically will be calling your default constructor from the parent group class, which is here. So even though we don't have a statement calling the default constructor from your parent class, it will automatically go through and call the super constructor, the constructor from the parent class. Then from there, we are being sent over here. It prints the second hamburger. Then it comes back, prints the first hamburger. Then it finally prints the first Western cheeseburger constructor. But that's something that you need to be able to understand and remember that even though we're not calling our default constructor from the parent class, Java will automatically call it just in case it needs to be able to set up any additional variables. And that's why, even though we're not setting the number of patties, the number of cheese and tomato in a Western burger in this part, they automatically are being set within a value by our parent default constructor. And then finally, when we create our last Western burger, we are calling our second constructor, which in part, before it prints second hamburger constructor, is going to be calling our second hamburger constructor here. Then it prints second hamburger constructor. It sets those variables. Then it comes back and prints the message, those two, sets those two last variables, and then it prints your Western burger. Any questions? Yeah, so it gets a little complicated, but we'll practice a few multiple choice just to be able to review the concepts. Have a great day.